Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream, we work on building a Django app that I've got out there in the wild for people to use. We're going to continue on that, so let's get started. I've got a couple plans for this evening. I don't know if we'll get to both of them. We'll make a dent in this first one, certainly. So this is a journaling service, if you've not seen the stream before, and it is a service that works by sending out emails to let a person reply to those emails to build their journal. The hook is that the prompt that gets sent out, that email out to the user, includes a past entry to keep it interesting, of like reminding them of what they did in the past. I've used a similar service, and that service provides an export feature and also provides an import feature. And I want to do the same thing. I want to be able to allow users to take their data out of the app very easily because it is their data. I don't care about their journal. If they stop using the service, they should be able to take their stuff with them. And anybody who is also coming from a service that's similar, like I am in my case, should be able to import their stuff. So that's what this import page is. It's primarily for me, so I'm the primary user. I've got like a decade's worth of journal entries that are sitting in this other service, and I want to get them into my own app here, which is JourneyInbox, and get that going. So that's the plan. We'll see how far we get. The other thing that I've been thinking about is increasing the number of people that could trial. There's like the app is currently in a beta mode, and it locks out a certain number because I'm only able to send a certain number of emails every day with the free SendGrid account that I'm on. And I'm noticing that a lot of people who are signing up are not. Let's get right into the code and think about what we want. I have a format that comes from this other vendor that I've been using, and it matches pretty closely to my own entry model, and I did that on purpose. It was a deliberate decision because I liked the model that they had, so I figured why deviate from that. So the format is simply a list of, it's a JSON list, it's a JSON output that provides entries that are in the form of a body, which has the text of the journal entry, and then it includes a when timestamp. And so that's what I want to be able to replicate, the act of bringing that in. And there's some constraints around that I need to be careful with, is that because I don't want to be able to let somebody take a JSON file, import, and create 1 million records. Like, that would be bad. So we need to put some limits on what's there. So that's going to go into the design. There's also a limit on the overall size of an individual post length to something that is reasonable. Because I also, while I don't want to be arbitrarily short, I don't think any particular journal entry, if you're doing a daily journal, is going to be, the length of War and Peace. That's not reasonable. So I think putting in some constraints there will help prevent abuse on this if somebody's trying to take advantage of that for some stupid reason. And John, I may be, that's probably a good way. I'll probably push generate some strings that are of that length to test that. So yeah, I think so. We can use some faker attributes and set some size attributes on there, and then just go up to the limit and say, plus add on a few bytes to make it go over whatever limit we set in order to test those verification points. So the broad strokes of this is I need a few things. Initially, what I need in order to make use of this, I don't even need a settings page. So ultimately, where would this live? This would live as we'd have a settings page for the app, and we'd put a feature on there that says, got previous entries from XYZ services. Maybe that's at which point I'll name the services that are similar, and let them know about an import feature. Or maybe I won't even name the service. There's no necessarily a reason to do that. Just kind of advertise that there's a way that you can import a past journal if you're wanting to. So I think what I want to do to start is just have that endpoint available for me so that I could actually do that. And it's going to look like a pretty simple form. It would be an input form with a file field, and that will display on the get. So we'll use I'm blanking out on the actual input type. We'll find it. HTML field file input, I guess. And then we will do a post and pull out that file and process it and go through all of that jazz. So it should be pretty straightforward in many ways. And maybe, well, now I'm thinking about it, maybe it doesn't even need to be a file, like an actual form post, a form data. Hi, Lopez, say more about generated fields. I'm not sure what that is. So if you have something to add there, I'd be interested to explore that. I don't really know what that is off the top of my head. All right, what I do know is where I want this to be. It's going to be a route that lives right at the top. And this feels like, to me, it feels like something that could be in the entries app. It's like an entries view. This is about importing entry is really what this is. So we'll call it something like import, and then have a view to entries, which we don't currently have. So if we go to the entries app, I think it's going to be just an empty file right now, that's okay. Start from nothing, it's fine. And let's see. So we know that the page probably, well, now I'm thinking about how far do I want to take this? Do we just make the simplest thing possible, which is nothing more than a post, and then I could do a curl. I'm trying to think of like how I'm going to input this myself for my own selfish purposes, and then how we want to use it later when it's available to users. Because we could have this be, you add a field and then we do instead of an actual form submission, just do a JSON post, right, with some JavaScript to actually submit the file. And I think, what's the downside of that? The downside is like any form validation. So if there's any problem, the parsing on that side would be kind of annoying. So, yeah, let's go with a not, well, I don't know. Okay. Trying to be pragmatic of maybe this is nobody else is going to need it, so let's do the minimum thing that gets me what I want, and I can advertise it in some way if somebody really cares, but I don't think most people will care. Yeah, that's what I want to do. All right, so let's do that. Let's do, and in fact, if I want to go so far as let's get some other things done, let's do this. I'm going to say this is a staff only entry point. Yeah, I don't think I want to go so far as this, because John, what I get from them is not a SQL dump. Like I have my data from them, from this other vendor. It's already in a JSON file that has the fields in this format of just a list with the object literals, and they have 2 keys for every object, which is a when field, which is a date time, and then the other field is the actual text entry. So I don't have that level of raw data. And that's sensible. It's what I want to support. It's like, okay, if you provide a JSON file, then anybody should be able to provide that if they wanted to. So let's call it import entries. This is going to take a request, which is an HTTP request, and it's going to return an HTTP response, probably just like a 201 or something like that. I don't know that it really matters. Yeah. Whoops. Response. Oh, come on now. HTTP response. Why is it now forgetting? Next. Yes. There we go. And so we'll say create new entries from JSON data. And again, I don't want to, like, I think I'm just going to go for my own selfish needs for a while, and we'll come back. What we'll do is, like, I'll make the import feature, make it work, upload my stuff, and then we can focus on other things that are more user facing, which I think is more important at this stage of the app. So let's see, we'll add validation in the future on the number of allowed entries. like I know I'm not uploading 1,000,000 rows. I have a finite size number of rows that I want to do, but that not everybody will. And then limit the length, the allowed length of each post. And as I was thinking about this earlier, the validation of the number of entries is actually what I really want to do, because what I don't want to have to happen is for somebody to just be like, well, you know what, I can't get them on this one, but let me put together a file that just creates, like if I set it to 1,000 entries or something like that, then they just upload multiple 1,000 entry files. So what I'm really looking for is like a lifetime number of entries. And this could be an extremely generous number. For example, I think what I had in my head was, why don't we just shoot for this, 365 times 100. You know, I will be doing well to live to 100 years old, and so would most people on this earth. So if I allow for, you've written a journal entry for every day for 100 years, well, file a bug report, and then I can add, your great grandmother who might want to use this service. But I think most of the time that's not going to happen. So by setting this like lifetime on the account of this, how many entries that I allow, then I save myself from anybody dealing with multiple uploads. They're just eventually going to hit into that limit of, this is the max number of allowed entries. So that seemed like a reasonable way to go about this. 1 second, I've got a tea bag here that's been steeping too long, so I need to get that out. There we go. All right, so, but from my point of view, I want to be able to take, this will just be JSON data as the body, and we'll parse it out and then just return like an HTTP OK. So let's do, like we could probably do it just as a raw thing with a bytes of OK. We don't really have to have a fancy return. It's going to be a 200 response for now. If I was doing it more semantically meaningful, we could do a created, so it'd be like a 201 response. But I don't care. So that's all. Maybe change HTTP status code. I don't know. Is a user going to care either? Because if it's all like supported through the app as a form you're filling out, they probably don't care about the status code either, because it's not really an API in that regard. So we need to do some basic stuff. We need to get the data. So that's from, do we already have an example of JSON loads somewhere? Yep. So we want to do, what do we do over there? Let's save this. Hopefully, come on. JSON loads. Ah, right, we were doing this with the checkout session. Okay. And the body is already in as a string for the app, so that's why this loads s should work. I think that's the case. So we'll follow suit with JSON. Whoops. Well, why is it? Hopefully. I want just JSON, but is that this one? There we go. And then we want loads request body. Okay, that gets us our data, like our raw data to work with, which should be a list at this point. That's what I'm going to pass in. And each entry should be already in the right shape. So what else do we need? We know we need, this needs to be validated and only allow staff. So I think there's an isStaff decorator that we can use. Or is that, I'm thinking of, I created one. I don't remember. So let's go to from Django contrib auth decorators import. Help me out here. Decorator system. Staff. Nope. Well, I know there's user passes test. but I was hoping we could get away with not using user passes test, but maybe we have to. All right, let's look at our clone. Go to auth decorators. Yeah, all right. I guess we have to. So we need a couple here. We need this to be, the other one we need is login required. We want both of them. And so we want the outer one to be login required to make sure that it passes that. And then if you've passed that, then we want to use the user passes test decorator. And this takes a lambda, or well, it takes any callable really, but we want to give it a lambda. And I believe the lambda is anything that takes the argument is the user object. Yep. So we would take a lambda like so and say user. Wow, that was funky. And then we want to return user is staff. What? No. Oh, it doesn't know what the user type is. Okay. So there's an isStaff attribute on the user, which is only going to apply to my account. This is a way to make this just for me. And did I write my lambda wrong? Is it? I forget. Yeah, you don't need the return statement. Forgot about that. So now we have to have a staff user in order to even use this thing, and then we get the data. So, all right, what are we gonna do with that? So I'm gonna let's see. We need to do in the future. We need to do validation that the entries are correct, i.e., just the body and when. Yeah, Tech Insider. I could create a specific decorator, and I think I have in the past. I think in this case, I just don't feel like it, to be truthful. And part of that is because one of my issues in the future is to implement a different package that would change all of this stuff anyway. So I wrote a separate package called Django denied. I'll bring it up really quickly. The idea behind Django denied is that where is my? I thought the GitHub link would surely be at the top. I guess not. Is that all views are rejected by default. So it's the idea like locking down everything on the site, and that you must opt into every single thing, which forces you to think about permission for everything. So I use this for my homeschool app. It's pretty useful. It's a way to give me peace of mind that I'm not leaving any of my views accidentally open. It's a pretty simple interface from my point of view, but we're not going to get to that today. Maybe not even get to it for a while. Hopefully not before we get too many views, but because of that, I don't feel a strong compulsion to make this better. I think I have some built-in, I call them authorizers in Django denied, and there's an authorizer for isStaff, so we'll use that eventually. Not yet, though. Okay, so we've got our data. I know the shape of the data. It's a list. So we're gonna say the way I can do this is we'll call this well, we might even not even need to. What I want to do is bulk create this. That's really what I'm after. And we're going to have hundreds of these. as long as it doesn't time out, there's a timeout limit on Heroku, and that timeout is like 30 seconds or something like that. So we should be safe for that stuff, because I don't think there will be so many things that will just kill the database. So I'm not going to worry about it. So there's a question of like, how do we create these quickly? So I want to go to the Django project page, or Django documentation. Let's look at our docs. This is just pull up 4.2 because I think that's what we're still on, although I think we're close to going to 5. Or did we do 5 last time? Yeah, we went up to 5. Okay. Not that it matters, but we want to bulk create is what we're after. Yep, Tech Insider, you're right. So I just want to bring up I can't remember if you have to create the instances and then pass in a list of instances, or if you can pass in just dictionary data. Yeah, okay. It has to be the actual a list of instances. Save will not be called. That's fine. I'm not worried about that. So what we have to do that's missing, there is a required foreign key on that model. We go to the entry model and we take a look at it. You see that it has the body and when, which we're going to get from the data. Oh shoot, do I need to parse it? I probably do. Yeah, I might have to sign into my other app and like actually pull a download file of my export to see what this, to make sure I can look at this. So we'll have to do that. Because I think, I want to get the shape of this right. So let's do that. I'm going to go log into my app. I'm going to put this on secrets mode because I really don't, I don't want to throw shade at the other service that I was using. It's been a good service, but it's the reason I'm switching to it is, or switching away from it, is because it had reliability problems, and I just don't, I've said that repeatedly, so I feel like I need to highlight that very much. And I'm going to that page right now and clicking the export button. The export has the name in it. I'm gonna have to switch that. So hold on one second. I'll be almost done. So I'm going to my downloads directory in a new terminal, and I'm going to rename the file from what it was to be, oh, I must have had a couple of these here. Oh, interesting, I already had a file. To entries, and then today's date. They've got an extension on here. So I'm going to keep basically I'm swapping out the name of the service for the word entries. And then after I do that, I need to check it, which is the part that I can't show you that either, because it's like my personal journal entries, which I don't really want to be showing on stream very much, but I need to see them briefly. So I'm looking at one of these, and like I thought, it's a JSON list, and it's got it has object literals. Then one of the keys is body, and that has the string, just like I would expect with new line character. It's all quoted, all that's good stuff. And then the date is a string of the format year, month, day. So that's the thing that we're working from. So let me get out of there, and then now I can safely bring this back. There we go. So we know, all right, so let's write down the shape here. So the shape, it's a list with object literals that have body, which is a string, so of the content, and the other key is when, which has a string like 2024, 14, 17. So we need to transform this raw data into a set of entries, and then once we've done that, then we can call bulk create. I Lopez, transactions atomics, it's a good way. I I think what you're talking about is there's a setting in Django about transactions and the atomic mode. Let me see if I can find that setting. Hold on. I bet we can just search for atomic. Settings. Atomic? Yeah, atomic requests. The atomic request is not something that I've used much, or if at all. I think in every project I've ever used with Django, I have left it on the false setting. Now, at the same time, I've heard people that like are big advocates for it. And what my understanding of what it does, whoops, did I lose everybody? I lost my stream deck. Nope, still says I'm here. Well, my stream deck lost information about who's there. Oh well. What the atomic setting does is sets for the entire, it's essentially it wraps the entire HTTP request lifecycle in a single transaction. And that is going to be slower because it's when you're putting a transaction at that level and you're potentially involving multiple tables, you can start to like lock stuff up. There's some consistency guarantees. Yeah, John, thanks for pointing that out. It is nice for rollbacks. So if something goes wrong, then you maybe don't, well, you're likely not to have a mess of data on your hands where some stuff was committed and some stuff was not. In practice, I've not found it to be a problem personally. But maybe that's because I haven't looked closely enough at the data. Maybe there's a bunch of like half-finished data in the scenarios that I've dealt with, and yeah. So I'm not planning to set it here for JourneyInbox. But frankly, there's not going to be a lot of need for it because there's not going to be a lot of mutation kind of views, things that are changing the actual state of the database from view actions. So I guess if you were wanting to have, if it was really important to have those kind of guarantees around your like data being related and committed atomically, then you could use that at the trade-off for speed. So it's kind of on you. It would be nice if there's, and I think there are ways, like if it's, let's say you don't do this, there's also a way to get transactions atomic, which maybe is what you're pointing out. It's like you can do a certain import from the database database package. I think that's where it is, and then kind of with a context manager wrap that stuff up, and that might be useful for certain scenarios where like, hey, I have to have this and this go together, and it's really important to wrap that atomically. But atomic is not perfect in that, like, you could have API calls. Well, depends, I guess. It depends on how it's represented. So if it catches for any exception, maybe you have like an API call to an external third-party service that fails, and you would want to use that. So I just don't personally use it, but I don't think it's a bad thing either, for sure. All right, let's get these entries created and like get this bulk create going, and then we can move on to the next thing, hopefully. And then I can report back whether it has worked in the way I wanted it to or not. So we will do let's see. I know that we already have, so if we've gotten here, we basically have confirmed it's me. And so what we want to do is create a list of entries, and we want to say what? We want to say, we could probably actually even do this in a comprehension. We need to create an entry, which is not going to pull in automatically. That's annoying. From journal.entries. Models import entry. And actually, we're already in the entries app, so we can do that. It's a relative import. Let's get this out of here. What is it complaining about? Oh, I have unfinished code. So we want to create an entry, and we know that the body is going to be equal to the same as the, I'll just call it E. No, I'll call it entry. The entry body. And let's, for the moment, let's just close this off as for entry and data. That's going to be a list. So here's our basic comprehension. And then ultimately where we're going to go with this is, oh, did I lose it? Yeah, I did. Well, I want to go back to the bulk create. Bulk create. So ultimately we're going to call entry.objects. Well, how funny. It's the exact model name as the example. It's not a blog entry, but pretty close. Entry.objects.bulk create, and we'll pass it in entries. The other thing that I'm assuming here is some amount of like uniqueness. I actually don't know what bulk create does. If you have two entries that had the same date, it would probably just create them both with the same date. It wouldn't care and give them different IDs. So we actually need to, one of the other validations is that validate that there is only one entry per allowed per date. And then I think what I'm going to do is say pick the last one if we have multiple. And it's going to bother me that these are going to show up as whenever I grep for to do in the future. So I'm going to switch these to this marker, which I used to use in the past as like a low priority thing to work on. And we'll probably write another Jira, a GitHub issue to track that we need to do this validation and actually expose the feature. A unique constraint, that's probably a good idea, John. That would help. That would actually save, that would be better than actually doing this logically. We just make it like blow up of, then we got to report back up of like, here's why your upload failed. And what does that mean for, is it all, does bulk create work as like atomically? I don't remember. Or is it just like going through each one? This method inserts into an efficient, generally only one query. Okay. And then they would have a constraint validation failure at the end there. You're probably right, Farhan, about it being slower. That's probably okay. I think, Lopez, I think what I would do is it would be a unique constraint on the user and the date. So you're saying like Matt may only ever have one entry for April 17th. That's what it has to be. Yeah, if you compare those two things together, then and nobody could ever upload multiple for a single date. So that seems like, actually, let's go capture some of these. Those are good ideas. So we want constrain entry, and I'll just say when plus user. There should only ever be one entry per user per date. Yeah, that feels right. And then we'll also I'll put a secondary one here about expose the import feature to all other users. Selfishly, I only implemented this initially for myself, which is what we're doing right now. All right, that will get, and now that it has a number, let's do this. Let's just change it all to number 1, issue 126. issue 126, and we'll delete that line because this is going to be that other issue about the constraint. Okay, good enough. So now what do we need? We need to do some parsing. And I think we have, I brought in like a date util, right? Where is it? Yeah, there it is, Python date util. So let's bring up a managed shell. And it didn't have to be a managed shell, I guess, but and then say from date util dot parse. Of course, my tab complete is not working in here. All right. From date util parser import parse. Okay. Parser import parse. I just want to confirm that these are going to produce a date object like we need. And then we'll do the string 2024 4/17, and hopefully we get a date object out of this. Get a date time. Well, that's interesting. Is that going to work? Well, we'll find out with it. We're going to have to write a unit test, because I have to guarantee 100% code coverage. So I think that a date time should work just fine for the date, for setting a date field. So this should be okay. Okay. So let's stick with this here as it is, and we've got parse now, and the other thing that we'll be doing here is we'll be making some assumptions that all of the dates are in a valid format, and will blow up if they're not. So that'll be an interesting thing. We'll have to catch that in the future. In fact, let's see, validate any date parse errors, or no, fail on, and I'm just gonna like throw it back at them because that's not for me to figure out at that point. So we'll do entry, and we'll do when. Well, what did I screw up? Oh, I see. Lost a closing parenthesis. And yep, it's not a positional thing, so it needs to say when. And then I guess the last bit that we need here is, what am I doing? The user foreign key. So we'll say that the user is equal to the request user. All right. What are you yelling about? Okay, this is where my LSP can't figure out what's attached to the request attribute, because Django is too dang dynamic sometimes. So now we've got our list of entries, and pulled out of the data. We pulled out the body, the when, and we've pulled the user from the request, who should be logged in, so this should be a valid user. And then we're going to call bulk create on it. I think that's everything. Oops. Put this in the wrong spot, and I've got too many parentheses here. All right. Now I think we're good. Let's delete that, and I think that's going to be it. So we do have to do one more thing here, and that's hook it up. So I'm going to want this to be like in a dedicated account, dedicated import endpoint. Because why not? It'll be a nice, very nice, simple path. So we've got our index page. This is where we can start putting a little like spacing to kind of group stuff logically. So this is the boring, we'll say boring legal stuff. And then we'll have a section for, well, I've got to kind of have them split up all over the place, don't I? So we could put this down here and say third party routes. What if there's a Mojo version of Django? That'd be pretty cool. I think, didn't Mojo just like announce that they were open source recently? I thought so. Okay. So the success thing goes with account. The admin stuff, I'll just put it at the bottom. Who cares? Then we could do admin. So this gives a little bit of structure. Oh, boo. Stupid auto formatter. Oh, okay. There's interesting. I wonder if their compiler like has weights and stuff in it, but it's like AI. Compiler itself is built with AI in some crazy way. That would be beyond bizarre because it's like, I don't, you can't have a compiler that's hallucinating. Well, these comments did not work out the way I wanted them to go. So we'll do, why won't you let me have a space there? It's pretty lame. Oh well. So where do we want to put this? We want to put this is like sort of an accounty feature, although not really. Maybe it's more of an entries feature. Yeah, I don't want to think of everything as account related. That would be not a good way to think through things. And I guess what we really could do is have an include of the entries URLs and then put import right at the top there. But I don't want to, because I want to keep my paths a little cleaner. I don't want to have it be like entries import. Not right now anyway. Maybe in the future I would, but I don't think this app will have a lot of routes to it. So let's put up a simple path like this, and we'll say import, and we want to do import entries. And we'll just, for the time being, call it import entries as a name. Okay, I think we're just about there. We got to check, we got to write a test that we can actually access, that it will actually put some stuff in there, and I think that'll be it. So let's go to where? Let's go to journal entries tests, and this will be test views. We'll save that. I want to bring up another test views because it's just easier to copy from stuff sometimes. And we'll have a class test import entries is what we'll call it. We'll put all these tests together. And I want to test what I really care to test. I just want to test the happy path. That's really what I'm after. So I'm going to just call it test OK. That's the result we were ultimately after. And we'll say the import view creates entries. And in the future, when we get down to like the real version that would be for users, we'll add a lot more tests. But this is just, I need enough tests that we can get that 100% coverage, because if I run coverage right now, it's going to fail because all of that view is completely uncovered. That's no good. So we need to bring in, there might be a different client that we can use actually. Let's go to PyTest Django and look at the documentation. Oops, there's already a thing that we could use, but oh well. There's a fixture section. So there is a client here, but I want to say is there also an admin client? There it is, admin client. So an instance of the client logged in as an admin user. Probably good enough, right? So let's do admin client. And then we can do how do we do that other one where we actually did the post? We have to do some crazy stuff. Let's accounts views. Nope, that's the actual view. So we have, that's a get. Come on, there's a post in here somewhere, surely. Okay, we passed it in as just a data and give it the content type, and the client handled that, I guess. Neat. So we're interested in the response. So we want to do admin client. Whoops. Still getting used to my new completion shortcuts. I'm getting faster, but not there yet. And we want to do a post, and we want a reverse. That reverse, and the name is import entries. The view we've just been working on. The data, we'll give it as the data, just like that, and we'll do the content type as application JSON, because that's what we're going to expect. But I didn't actually assert for that in my view, so we'll probably need some kind of validation on. Yeah, there's probably another validation that belongs here. Let's see. Validate JSON, because otherwise this loads can fail. Because in the other situation where we were doing the session, I didn't bother checking that because I was the one calling that. In this case, we're basically opening up we will ultimately be opening up an endpoint where someone can provide their own user data, and I would not trust that data to necessarily look like valid JSON. So if I want to avoid Sentry errors in the future where there's JSON parse errors, then we definitely need that validation in the future. Okay, but not today. So what do we want? We want data, and I just want to create a simple list with probably just one entry for now is fine. So I'll say we'll do body, and we'll say hello from my journal, and we'll do when, and that's going to be, we'll set it to today, 2024 04/17. That's what it is for me, local time, and for you it might already be tomorrow. And then on the other side, we want to assert a few things. We want to assert that we got through this, so we got that 200 response. So the status code should be equal to 200. And then we want to, how do you access who the user is for that client? Like does the client have that attribute attached to it? Well, let's just try and run this test and see what happens. So it got through it. It probably did what we wanted, but I'm not sure where the user is, so how we could get that with confidence of who the user was. Let's try running it again. So now we're at a debugger. I put that in there. And I want to check what's on the admin client, because it might be right there as an accessible thing. 18.4.20, yeah. Yeah, formatting is a funny thing, and I have no right to talk about it as someone in the US. We're kind of crazy in this country. Client has okay. Client has request. So yeah, there it is. Is that the same request, I wonder? So can we do this? Request user. Function object has an attribute user. Hody, you're coming from the future? Yeah. Yeah, some of you are like early. Thanks for being here. But yeah, it's definitely on the late side for me. Yeah, I just tried that on the request does not seem, so it's like it hasn't gone through middleware. So that doesn't seem right. But we might be able to check on the fixture itself. All right, so let's do this let's go one layer deeper. And this is good to see probably because it informs how you can dig in and understand this stuff. The fixtures are not magical. They're just code. And so let's go into PyTest Django and look at the fixtures implementation. And in here should be the admin client. Yeah, that's what I figured it might be. So it's taking the admin user, which is a different fixture, and it's doing okay, is it? All right, hold on. Admin client user? No, not. Okay. But what we can do probably is if we take the admin user, we'll have access to the same thing. So we should be able to do in our own test, we'll come over here and we'll say, we know that we have the admin client. Let's also get the admin user that was used for that client. And then we should be able to say, assert that entry objects filter user equals admin user. The count should be 1 because we only had one of them. Whoops. Got to take out the debug statement or the breakpoint. So there's 1 as I would hope. And we can do entry. At this point, since there should only be 1 for this whole test, we should be able to just call first. And you know what? In fact, let's change this. So let's just call first. No. I'll keep it. Django username field. When you logged in, assigned, right. So, oh, you know what it was? Oh, I see. I think my debugger was before the post. Yeah, you're right. So we could have just, all right, well, either way, this should be the same, right? This admin user is essentially declaring this client is going to be using this admin user. So that should be fine. But you're correct. I think it would have added it had this been allowed to run a little further. Is that right? Here's the force login right here. Okay. I'm getting myself wrapped up, but I don't think it matters. So let's just do our assertion so we can move on. So let's do entry dot body is equal to hello from my journal. All good. It's looking like the right thing. And the other thing is that this is actually a date time, or a date instance is what I care about. Entry when is equal to datetime.date. What is this snippet? What is that going to do? Let's try it. Oh, that's fun. Not what we wanted, but pretty cool. Why are those all snippets? Why is it not importing datetime? Datetime. Oh, there it is. So we'll do a date, and it needs to be this year, 2024, 4/17. Oops, not 04. Okay. So it is creating what we want. I think that's going to do it. See if this gets us all the coverage. Should. Nice. So I think I have what I need, because again, this is mostly fulfilling my need. So I'm going to be able to take this, and essentially after I deploy, I should be able to directly just upload all of my stuff, and I'll find out and be able to report back if it times out. If it does, I think I could just take my file and like split it manually, and just chop out some of the, the upload entries, and then we can worry about the problem there. I don't think it would, even though I've gotten, so I have like 10 years worth of entries, and I do pretty much have an entry for every. That is a lot of entries, actually. Now that I think about it. So we'll see. I'll report back on how it goes. Let's take a look though overall with what we did. We've got this new test that's just checking, hey, can we send in data that's in JSON format and create entries? That's a pretty simple test. Our view does require login, and it will only work for the person who is staff, which will be me. Assuming that is the case, then that's going to be tricky in some sense of how am I going to do that post from a curl? That's my problem to figure out afterwards. Okay, and then I added a little bit of annotation to our URLs list to kind of clean it up and start to provide some structure there. And I would have had it a little bit nicer formatting if I could. Well, okay, maybe we could be synthetic about that with, if I did it like this, of kind of space them out that way. Not amazing. I don't know if I like it. We'll go with it for now, and maybe I'll hate it and say like, no, we're not going to do that. All right, so we will say add import view. And this fixes number, oh gosh, what's the number? 49. Push that up. All right, time to talk about new stuff. So we have this idea that currently the prompt will only send out at one time of day. So we ultimately want to be able to make that a user preference. So if you want to be able to receive your stuff, your daily prompt at a different time of day because you're on a different time zone and maybe it comes at a weird time for you and you don't really think about it and you want to be able to change that, we should make it possible to change that. But we need to lay some groundwork before we can do that, where we need to make it so that your current time zone is known as best we can, and that we're able to like automatically present that to you, and then save that information when we're interacting with the user, and then like save that. We need to have that time zone set as like a bit of profile data. And I think that gets us to a point where we don't even have a profile right now. We have an account model, but that's not really a profile. This is about, I view so we've got different models for different purposes here. In my mind, the user model, which we're using the abstract user here just to get the activator thing on it. Kind of gives it track its life cycle in case we talked about like soft deletion. That's what that's for. So we have this user model, but the only reason I'm really using it, aside from this this mix in here, is for authentication. It's only going to be for auth. So that's one, like a single purpose thing. Similarly, I view the actual like account that's connected to the model as just for handling your account status. Like, are you a paying user trialing? Like, I just want it to be dealing with that domain. That gets us to a place where now we need to also consider user preferences. That's where I think we have a third category of kind of user data. And classically, if you look at all sorts of Django tutorials out there, that model is typically called profile. And so we will do that. There's going to be, it'll be similar to at the user account, at the user creation time, we'll have a post save hook that will create that will create a profile. Farhan, I'll get to your hash auto ID question in a second. But then we'll have be able to attach like a time zone preference there. We'll be able to associate that. And ultimately what that'll let us do is we can switch the thing that is sending out the prompt every day to look for who needs to receive the prompt this hour and send it to them at their preferred time. That's the idea. Hash auto ID. Where did I put that? Did I put that somewhere? Is it in here? Yeah, it is. Okay. My idea with that. Oh, I remember. We use that as part of the identifier for sending the email. So, and I didn't want it to be something that was guessable by all of the users. So where this gets used is if we look at the jobs that's actually doing the sending. Part of the way that the system identifies who the email came from is through some trickery with who it's sent from. And so when we set the from email address, which is really an attribute that people are not going to mess with when they're doing a reply to, because that's how they have to reply and they don't know any other alternative, we're including that account ID, which is that hash. And that means that in the webhook, where did I put that? The receivers. We've got this webhook that's processing this, and we look up the account based off of that ID that we found inside of the essentially the to field of this. So we pulled out the account ID from and extracted that information out of there. And this lets us then look up from an active account, getting that account ID and associating with the right user. Because the reason we did that is we can't necessarily trust the from address on the message, because maybe you signed up for JourneyInbox with your primary email and you have aliases or something connected to your email client, and when you send replies, it actually comes from a different email address. And if we depended exclusively on the from email in order to accept your journal entry, then we would not find your account because JourneyInbox wouldn't know anything about that. So instead, by basing it on a piece of metadata that we embedded into the from email of when the prompt is going out, we have confidence that we can associate with the right thing. But I didn't want to include account IDs in here because I didn't want the possibility that anybody could just say like, oh, I'm account number 36. Let me just try and add something to somebody else's journal. That would not be good. So it's all, in some ways it kind of acts a bit like a secret key. It's not a perfect system, but it's a pretty solid way of doing it. I think that is reasonably secure in that regard. Yeah, and to be honest, this was not uniquely my idea. I took my other service that I used, and I saw that because I was having this problem of like, well, how do how do I concretely identify this? And we were having some challenges around where's the message, what aspects could we look for, and this was something I observed when I was looking at the service that I currently use. I'm like, that is a great idea, so let's do that. We could probably maybe do a belt and suspenders thing of like, in some future state, I could maybe make it off the from field. If I was finding that there was spam or somebody was reporting that, hey, my entries are getting overwritten by, I don't know how that would work, but I'm not too concerned about that today, because you really would have to know these hash IDs are like they're multiple characters. You have to be able to guess them, and then you'd have to be able, and to derive them, you'd have to have the salt value, which is again a secret that I don't really share. Okay, so yeah, John, you're right. We have to make some stuff time zone aware. Now we're dealing with dates, so that should be okay. And the other thing about this is that, let's say, because there's some weirdness here of, we need to look at, what do we need to do? After we have this feature where we've got the time zone stuff in there, we need to be able to like make sure that there's the possibility that you could change your time zone that day. And what we don't want to have happen is you miss a prompt for a day because you change your time zone to some time from, I don't remember the right exact sequencing of this, but you set your time zone back after that hour's already happened in the day. And so now you're, any of the slots that are going to try and send the emails for the rest of the day are not going to catch you. So we have to look for, okay, you set your time zone at like 8 in the morning, your time, but the sending is now at 10 in the morning, your time, and we've missed it. So we have to check for anything that was not only that at that exact time slot, but also anything that hadn't been sent prior to that time slot, as a kind of a guarantee for that very corner case. It's pretty unlikely. I mean, it could happen, and maybe it's not even that uncommon, but it's just one of those things that you have to think through as you're dealing with time zone shifts. Daytimes are annoying. Like anytime you're dealing with time, it's annoying. That's the kind of a lesson that we'll learn out of this. I think before I want to do this though, because this is going to be a bigger project. So there's a couple of aspects that I was looking at the admin that I think need to be improved. I want to be able to take the accounts and see all of the accounts that are actually trialing. That would be useful because right now, like what I've noticed is I've got a certain number of accounts on the production site that are going, and I don't know how many of those are valid. So there's like a point of view that I want as an administrator of the site to be able to say, okay, how many trials do I have going right now? Kind of give me a sense of, should I be doing more marketing to kind of push people towards it? Also, I think I would like to incorporate how many slots are available to for people who are signing up, and that might be trickier. So I can't remember if I wrote that down or not. And did I write that one down? Sorry, looking through the list. It's hard to keep track of all this stuff. I didn't. Okay, so I think I want to do that. I think it might be quicker to get done. And actually, now that I'm looking at the time, I think I'm going to stream for about 2 hours tonight. So I got another 45 minutes in me. So we'll see how far we get on the time zone thing. But let's do the other stuff, other couple things first. So like I said, it's about the number of beta users are more. Let's see, more info about trialing users. So there are 3 major things I want to do here. I want to improve the admin with a type filter. That one's easy. I want to increase the number of allowed beta users. Also easy. And I want to show the number of available beta slots. Because as people trial and then age out, that number changes. And I want to be able to, for folks to see like, hey, there's only, 10 slots available, 9 slots available, whatever it is. And that'd also be a quick way for me to kind of look quickly. I could take a peek at the sign up page and see, oh, okay, I know the number is allowing 40 or whatever we want to do. And I see that there are 29, so there's 11 people that are trialing. Okay. John, I'm looking at your comment here. Email and profile page. You could have emails on the profile page that the user could add for legitimate emails. I wonder if you could say more on that. Not really getting it. But yeah. All right, let's get to it. So let's start with that admin filter, and I'll show you what I mean first. So let's start up the app. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, sorry, psych. We've got some pull requests that we got to merge from dependabot. So let's take a couple of these. So we've got time machine. What do they do? Fixed a seg fault. Great. That's just pure win. All right. And then PyTest cov removes support for xdist rsync. I wasn't using that. Don't care about the documentation. Added a Py project tunnel to the examples. All right, fine. Don't care. Sounds good. Okay. Next. Sentry. The final release. Oh man. Upsert monitors signals deny list. Gonna ignore some signal stuff. Okay. Looks good. Then we've got our friends at pre-commit. They're giving us a new version of rough. No changes there because they run pre-commit runs if there's any changes, and it's just showing the version bump. PyTest socket. Did I use PyTest socket? I must have. Surprised that I did that. Requirements. Where is it? Oh, is that a dev requirement? Yeah, I did. All right, cool. PyTest socket's pretty cool. It stops like external network traffic, so you're not accidentally contacting a network. Is there anything meaningful? Oh my word. I hate changelogs like this. Thanks, Mike the man, for making PyTest socket, but this changelog is awful. This is like completely, this information, I don't care. I don't care that you're doing pre-commit updates. Not useful. It just makes it hard to read a changelog of what matters. Like, what is something in here? Okay, there's a fix. Maybe I care about that. So some of these things should definitely be filtered out. Force enable socket CLI flag. I don't think that's going to require anything. All right, I think it's probably good. Passed on some on the pull request one. Merge it. One more. Django all auth. Oh. Well, let that run for a minute. All right, failed. Let's see what's going on. All auth account middleware must be added to middleware settings. What did you guys change? Five, 4. I might have done this for my homeschool app. Let's go over here. Do I have a homeschool clone? Yep. What was it called? Account middleware? Yep. All right. So let's check that out for a minute. Account middleware. Let's do a git lame and find the specific commit. Okay, so it just says all auth middleware is now required. This is me doing maintenance work on my other project. I'm just trying to see if there's any other thing that I had to do. So looks like no. All right. So one thing I want to do is, I remember last time I tried to get a PR and I couldn't because I didn't have hub. But this is going to make me put in a token. Oh, shoot. All right. I can't do that again today. Boo. And then I think the problem was when I tried to push it back up to the dependabot PR, it like closed the PR and then I put it in something else, which was dumb. So let's copy this. Git pull origin that thing. Is it rebasing this too? Just want to make sure it's okay. So this is the one that we want to pull. And we want to check that out. No. How did we do this last time? Django all auth. GB. So we have the origin one right here. Then we need to check out this specific one, that branch. Will this work? That seems like it works. Okay. And then what I really want is to add this middleware. We need to go to, oops, go to our settings, go to the middleware list, and let's add it here after the official Django middleware. Delete that. So now we've got the middleware added. Pull requests, man. Dependabot. I mean, this is what you pay for when you make an app. You got to keep stuff up to date. Add all auth middleware. Now I want to push this, and it's not going to let me. And this is where it blew up on me last time. Like, I think we tried this. I'm going to try it again. And it like closed the PR, which I didn't understand. I don't know if I was rebasing or what. Where'd that just go? Because it's not showing my commit. Maybe it's because I have a different name. I'm going to set it as not this. I'm going to push. Oh, come on. All right. So, can we push? It's been so long since I've just actually messed with real Git stuff for pushing for branches. So I want to push to origin. I want to push this particular branch. I pushed it up as origin. All right, fine. We create a pull request off this. It should have all auth and the change. So that's okay. Let's let that run. Stupid. So I need to offline, like, go get hub, because it's like my brain is broken on like how to actually push this up correctly anymore. Or I suppose I could go look it up, but I don't really want to when I have easier tools that I just need to set up. So once this goes, this should all work out, and I've looked at this on my other project, so I'm not even going to look at the change log for this. I'm happy with that. So once this is green, we'll merge, and then we'll pull, and then we'll move on to the bit that I was trying to do, to the stuff related to trials. Sorry. My brain just like completely went on the fritz there. So if I merge this, it should make the other dependabot PR go, hey, wait a minute, this looks like it's no longer needed. And it probably won't notice until it rebases. So I'll just leave that alone for now. We'll close it next time if it's not figured itself out. Okay, let's pull. What? Okay, it's got everything. So let's do a pip install of all the new stuff. And then we can move on. Still on port 5006. That should be this guy. And I think we've said it's mat and create course. Yep, cool. And we've got some stuff here. Oh, I'm so glad I changed that ASDF example from last week. Otherwise, I just would have broadcast my real email right there. So what I want to do is on this page, on the accounts page here, we have some generated accounts, but they don't show the status, or we don't have it set up to go by, status. There's a status field. So if we go to look at the accounts models, we can see that we have a status field here. It's a pretty easy thing to change. We should be able to go to accounts, the admin, and there is a on these things, there's a filter display. Is that what it is? I don't remember what it's called. So let's go to the Django docs and check out the stuff on top here. And we want to look at the admin, Django admin. And the thing we're looking for is a filter attribute, I think. List filter. So we should be able to go like this and say list filter and set that to status. Okay. Now, coming back over here, if we refresh this page, we should have a column at the side that shows our filter, and it defaults to showing all of them, but I can now switch to trialing. Well, that doesn't really help when you can't see the status. I think they're probably all trialing. So let's do ID, user, and then add status to the list display. What? Not have enough time to reload. There we go. So that didn't help because they're all the same thing. So let's switch this up to all. Let's take one of these, doesn't matter. Take this one, switch it to trial expired. And then now trialing, and we'll get that. So that's going to be useful for me because I've been periodically like poking at this admin. It's like, oh, it doesn't actually tell me anything. I can't see how many accounts are currently trialing or not. So that's a useful change there. So that's change number one. Not much to see there. The next thing I want to do is related to the number of accounts that we're going to allow. So we have I think it's in the, did we put it in the views? Somewhere there. Goodness, where did we put that? There's a limit on the number of trials that are allowed. And I can't remember where that goes anymore. The adapter? Here it is. Okay. So I hard-coded this to 20. And my thinking was like, SendGrid allows for like 100 emails a day. And so I wanted to make sure that if there were 20 people that were signed up, they could receive a prompt and do a reply, easy peasy. And that's just like 40 of the emails. This is also shared. This is a shared SendGrid account with my homeschool app. So I also want to make sure that I don't run out of emails there either. And what I found in practice is that this 20 number is so low. And the reason is that there's a lot of people who tried to sign up for the service and then didn't go through the verification process. And one of the changes we made to the sending system, we look at entries jobs, is in here, or I was in this definition, impromptable. I think, yeah, sysfilter right here. We changed it so that it would only send a prompt if you have verified your email. Because what was happening is initially people were signing up without doing any verification, and some of the email addresses were they were junk. They weren't intended to go anywhere, and they were getting bounces, and it was potentially going to hurt the sending reputation of the site. And this service is entirely based on email, or it's almost exclusively. Like 90% of the functionality is like sending out emails and receiving emails. So reputation matters, and because the reputation matters because it affects deliverability. So I made the change so that you could only receive stuff if you verified. So the combination of that is that that check and that people weren't signing up with verified is that there's only actually a small number of emails that were actually going out, which is silly. Well, it's not silly, it's understandable, but what it means is that there's a lot more people that I could permit up to for the trialing period, and but I'm not currently, because most of them weren't verifying. So Cody, yeah, that's a good. It might be. You might be. Let's see. Let's go check it out right now. So you could sign up today if you wanted to. So this is the other change that I wanted to make, is like I want to show like some kind of banner on here that says, hey, there are X number of spots available. Sign up now and get that going. So some of those initial people that signed up and previously saw this, they were taking up spots, and so I want to increase the number of allowed stuff for exactly those kind of tire kickers that don't actually go through and do the verification process. Because again, my primary concern was that I wouldn't have enough SendGrid emails to send out. But if what happens is, you know, of that 20, only like 4 or 5 were actually verifying, then I really have way more capacity to allow for beta users. Now, there's a scarcity mindset too that I want to put in play here. Is like, I don't want it to bump it up to like 500 or something like that. Not only would I run into trouble with that 100 limit, probably, because if you figure, say it was 500, what did I say just a moment ago? If it was 20 and there was about 25%, so you know, conceivably I could go max of like 400 people allowed to sign up, assuming that the verification rates stay the same and still be safe. But I don't want to do that, because I do want to have this idea that like not everybody can get in, you know, especially at this stage. So what I'm going to do is increase this number to more than 20. And I want to target an amount where I can comfortably still deliver, meet the delivery guarantees, even if there's like a burst of people that suddenly decide they all want to verify. And this is just an arbitrary number, but I'm thinking something like, I don't know, 75. That's sounding good to me. Okay, so with that though, I think I now have may have a failing test. I think I coded this somewhere of like it, yeah. Yep. We wanted to test that sign up was closed, but I hard coded the number of things to check for. So we got to go update that test. So we want to go to test adapter, and here's where we want to change this. This is kind of crappy because it's actually creating in like sequence a number of stuff. So this test could get a little slower. Oh, it's still nothing. Okay, never mind. I'm not worried about it. So now we've got those two numbers matching up. So that's the other thing that I wanted to fix. Now, here's the potentially tricky part, is I don't know. Don't know how to quickly modify, inject data into the signup page. Here's the signup page. But remember, this is not coming from me. This is coming from AllAuth. So I'm not sure if there's ways to influence that. So let's go to Django AllAuth, and I do have an idea in my back pocket if it's not, if this isn't going to work. But if I wanted to start here, so this was an adapter. Let's see if there are any other adapters. Why does this have no documentation? That's weird. John, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could set it as. I mean, there's probably a bunch of ways I could do this. I could set it as. I was gonna say a waffle flag or a waffle thing, but waffle doesn't have that. Waffle has Django waffle. There's a few different kinds of attributes that you can set. But it has flags, switches, and samples. But none of those allow for custom data values, I think. Flag. sample. Yeah. Oh, there's another project here. So if you wanted, I think if I wanted to be able to control that value, how would I do it? I could either put that in like a database table as a configuration, and like have a configuration table of settings I would want to control and have it be something that you could look up. There is also another package that we could consider using. It's called Django constants. And it's kind of exactly what we're describing here. Constants can work with like a Redis, but I believe it could also be database backed if you choose. It's been a long while since I've worked with constants. I'm trying to remember what the data storage is for it. Here you go. Backends. You've got Redis, you've got database, you've got the cache system memory. So I don't think I need that level of control for this. I think I'm going to be fine tweaking it to this one time, and it'll probably be good enough. So, but that's a cool thing we could do in the future if we wanted to have a little bit more dynamic control over something without having to mess with doing a deploy and all of that. It's a pretty heavyweight method to like change it right in the source code, right? But getting back to all auth though, I wanted to find, this is not the page I thought it might be. Here's the other adapter page. It's also not what I'm hoping for. There was a setting here. Oh, where do we find it? I remember being frustrated last time we looked at this for not knowing where the settings went to anymore. Regular accounts configuration, there it is. Okay. Default account adapter. That's what we used. We had the default account adapter. And I don't remember what was on it. So let's go check that. It might be something that we add to the default account adapter, but I can't remember. So let's go up to here, and then it's under all auth account adapter. All auth account adapter. Okay, default account adapter. What we're looking for is a way to inject extra data on the sign up page is what we're after. And if we can't find anything, then I have a different idea in mind, because we do control the template. There's your hint, if you know what I'm talking about. Can delete email format render. I guess I could, no, that's a render mail. That's not rendering the view. Keep scrolling. A lot of stuff in here. But so far, nothing I want to see. Where's the outline? Where'd that go? Okay, it's going to be faster. Pre-login, post-login. That's not what I want. This is harder than I thought it might be. Looking through something that has a just ridiculous number of methods on it. None of them are what I want. was hoping to find some place where we could inject context. Maybe one of you is seeing it and I'm not. See if we can find examples in here. These are in email forms. I don't care about the email context. That's not what I'm after. Don't care about the message context. Wow. Well, that's too bad. All right. So, plan B. We can do this with a template tag. That was my hint about templates. So we can make a custom template tag and do, the template tag would be, it would generate a number. That's all it would do. And it would take 75. So we probably should extract this to a constant and stop having it be just like hard coded in here. Yeah, we even have a place for constants. Let's do that. Let's do max trialing users. And from constants, import max trialing users. Now we can come over here and say max trialing users is equal to 75. And now we can come up to this test and say from journal accounts constants max trialing users, so we can update this just one time in the future. Save that. See if that test still passes. Good. Okay, cool. So now that we have that constant, we could actually do this math very trivially. And in our template tag, so let's go look at custom template tags. So here's let me get down to it. We've got our sign in page or sign up page, which is this one right here. And we have the message for when it's closed. Hody, this is what you were seeing. And this was what kicked in when on the adapter is open for sign up. When the number is less than the max, then we're okay. So we want to be able to say how many spots are left. So it's the max, essentially it's the math of the max minus the number that are trialing. That's what we care about. So we would put that on this page as a template tag. We'll put some kind of little box at the top that says, hey, this is how many people or how many folks can sign up currently. And yeah, go from that. So to do that, we want to go to look at template tags. And this should be a very, very basic template tag. So I think this should not be a hard thing to set up quickly. Okay, second link. There it is. It's more about setting up a particular structure. So I'm going to put this into the accounts app, and we put it in a certain structure. So we have to create a directory called template tags. And it needs to be a package, so we'll do add init.py. And then we create our tag, whatever we want our tags module to be. So, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. So we want to call this, let's call it accounts tags. Let's be super uncreative, because this is the name that's you're gonna add to your actual. Well, you can see it right here. We'll do just like there's a waffle tags. We'll have a load accounts tags. Okay, so we'll just follow along a little bit here. And we want to do from Django import template. And then we want to do register equal to template library, like that. We want a custom template tag that is going to be just a value. They're showing a filter tag here. That's what we want. That templates that expect a string. No. Simple tag. That's what it is. I was struggling to remember what it was called. So we want register simple tag, and we need to give it a name. So we'll call it available trial slots. Seems reasonable. And ours is not going to even take a format string. Let's see where their example is. We don't even need that. Or is this, I forget how some of these things work. It's been a long time since I worked with template tags. I'm kind of winging it as best I can. So let's just try this. Let's see. Let's see if we can get this far. So here's our tag. If this all works out well, then our available trial slots tag should return a value of 42. And we can do this by just going up to the waffle tags area and do account tags, or not account tags. This is accounts tags. This is where our tags would come from. And then we would do over here, we can say this is a simple tag, and it is not like an expression or a filter. So it's going to use curly and %, I think. So I'm gonna just for the moment, I'm gonna put it right up here in the sign up thing, just so we can see it if I've got this right or not. So available trial slots is the tag that we want to use, and like so. So let's come over here. Let's fire it up. And I want to do a private thing and go to localhost at 5006 and go to the sign up page. And it's saying 42. Good. Working like we would desire. Okay, so time to actually implement this now. Did I get something weird there? No. So what this needs to be is from journal accounts constants import the max trialing users, and from journal accounts models import yeah, this is right, import account. Okay, and so it's kind of the inverse logic. Oh, boogers. Stop. The rough tried to help me out by clearing out unused imports. Didn't want to, so I didn't actually need to say that. So this is similar to our adapter in reverse. So here's our adapter. So we want effectively the same thing, and we want to do I think we could even just return the number. So we could say max I don't know why it's not. That's weird. Not giving me access to that thing in the math here. It's okay. Objects trialing count. Okay. I'm going to put a doc string on there. Maybe. For the sign up page, advertise. This is one of those British American things, and I sometimes my brain goes to like a British mode. I think it's ISE. I don't know. The number of open trial slots. Okay. So it's noticed that we have a new account tags thing. I'm going to refresh this. We have a different number. So this seems right to me because I think we said 75, and then we were looking at it earlier in the admin. There were 18, right? And then I dropped it to 17. So, is that right? So 17. Am I off by 1 here? Let's go take a look at it for certain. The trialing. Oh, okay, 18. So yeah, I think that's right. 18 plus 57, that's 75. So that's the right number. So the thing that we need to do is now make this actually meaningful and not just a random number here. So we can go to, what do I want to use? I want to use probably the same thing that we used on what am I trying to say? The base template, where we have the flash. We did that last time. Let's go to the base template and take the style for the flash message. And I'm going to drop it right underneath the header. Like that. And we'll ditch this stuff and we'll do a change inside there. Just want to see what this looks like first. Okay, let's try that. Just says 57. Got a bunch of spacing on it. Let's drop that to 4, maybe. Okay, now we need some copy. So what should we say? JourneyInbox is in public beta. Let's call it that. Be like Gmail. There are boogers. Technically, we should like pluralize this because it's going to be weird when there's 1. I don't care. It's not that big a deal. There are 57. We'll call them beta users. Beta. Should I call it a slot? I don't know. Anybody have any feelings on that? Beta spaces. Open. Sign up now. Okay. All right. Any feedback? I think one thing I might try is just highlight the number a little bit. It's not super important, but just give it some visual flair. Yeah, I was wondering about that as myself, John. Is like do I care about the pluralization aspect of if you get down to 1? I think most likely no. Like if somebody's that last one, okay, they see me not quite getting it great, but hopefully if they're understanding that it's a beta thing, that they'll be lenient of, oops, they didn't do that little bit of coding. Although, okay. This is a... Let's check out plural. Right. There is a pluralized tag that we could use. Let's look at it briefly. So, because what I don't know is does my custom tag work with pluralize? No, I don't think it can. Because my tag is a simple tag that is using not this style. So like I think what the double curly braces means is an expression. So in fancy programming language theory, an expression is something that evaluates to a value, versus the alternative is like a statement. A statement is something that does not produce a value. It is like depending on a side effect. So like an if, like this right here, this flag, sign up flag, would be a statement, which is why it's under this curly %. So the curly % is intended to be a statement, I think, and then the double curlies are expressions. And you can put filters on expressions, but I don't think you can do a filter. Like if I did, is it going to blow up on me if I tried? Just out of curiosity, will this work or explode? Because if it works, then great, we can fix this up really quickly, but I don't want to waste a bunch of time if it's not going to work. Yeah. So it's looking for an end block, which tells me it's more like an expression, not more like a statement. So I could make that work with a separate filter, but it's, to me, just not worth the effort. All right, so we've got this now. It's going to be incorrectly pluralized when we get down to 1, but I'm not too concerned about it. But now we have this message of here's how many slots are available. That feels right to me. Feels probably like a good place to wrap up to. So we actually didn't get to the time zone stuff today. Sorry. I didn't realize that this was going to take that as long as it did. And we probably have a little bit of test code to write because we're not actually testing that template. Yeah. All right, fine. Missing one line. Do I care? Like I think this is a temporary feature. I don't care. What's the way to say ignore coverage? Not ignore. It's not no QA. Drawn a blank. PyTest or Python coverage ignore. Pragma no cover, because that's easy to remember. This is me being lazy. I acknowledge that. I don't feel like testing this, as I view it as temporary. May not be. Maybe we leave it in like permanent beta. But that's kind of how I'm feeling about it. Okay. So hopefully that was illuminating on what you can do with template tags. So like the fact that we didn't have any control in the Python code was okay, because we did have control over what template All-Auth was going to use instead. I don't recommend doing this kind of thing a lot, to be blunt. Like, it worked out okay. Template tags, just in general, are a pretty clunky way to do things. Also, I don't encourage building like this is a maybe kind of the easiest example of this. It was a very, like, we needed one little data point. It was something that we would have injected into context if we could have, but we couldn't. And so this fits well. But I've been at a job where we had template tags that had a bunch of complex logic in them. It's heavy on the website, and it executes more code than you might think. So don't reach for template tags very casually. I mean, that's not saying don't use them. They do have their uses. Go read the custom template tags docs, and you'll see some pretty good use cases for them. Even on that one file that we were looking at, we saw a handful of examples already. So we've got the flag block token that's coming from Django Waffle for doing feature flags. That's a great use of template tags. The CSRF token for generating a token. That's a classic use of template tags from Django itself. So I don't want to poo-poo on template tags completely. I'm just saying use them judiciously is probably my advice. All right, so coming back to this though, we changed our number from 20 to 75 to allow for a lot more people to sign up. I think that would still permit, I don't think that there will be that many people that will sign up and verify. I'll monitor that in case it becomes a problem, but I think that's an okay starting point. And we updated the admin so I can see how many people are trialing, although I don't know that I need to anymore. If I can just see the number of people on the sign-up page, it'll be just as easy, if not quicker, to go to the sign-up page and see, oh, this is how many slots that are available. And then we updated the test to make that work, and we have our actual tag itself, which was pretty easy to incorporate into the sign-up page. And this is how you bring the tags in. So the key aspect of loading in tags is, like, if we didn't include this account tags, which has to map exactly to the name of the module. So we've got it's the two things that are paramount is that you have to have a template tags package in your app, and then within that package you create a module, and that module is what you use with the load. That's really important. So those two things are what makes this work. And once that account tags has been added in, then you can bring in whatever simple tag or there are other types of, like, filters, whatever. They'll all come from that load command right there. So that's how this works. So we've updated the test. We've made sure that we saw it in action. So I'm confident that it does what I think it does. I checked the math against what the admin site is versus that number. So I have no doubt about the math there. I think it's all good, and I feel good about the change. So let's commit it. Did we create an issue for this? I can't remember. Yeah, we did. And we did all this. We did the admin type, we increased the number, and we showed the number of beta slots. So we'll see, commit this stuff, and we'll say add more info about trialing users. And this fixes 127. I guess I probably should, did I? Oh, there, I think I did. 100% coverage because we have the pragma ignore. So I'm going to push that up, and then I'm going to do a deploy. It might ask me to log into Heroku. Oh, good, it won't. Not today. So this will get that feature out there, and then we'll go see how many actual slots are available. And so Hody mentioned that they weren't able to sign up, and we checked and saw that, yeah, there was an ability to sign up tonight, but I actually don't know how many are truly there. Oh, I see one little thing that we should do, and this is, I wish that Heroku had a better way to advertise this, that we're off from a security version. So I want to do that as well. So let's get that going. Switch this to 3.11.9. Actually, now that I'm saying that, Heroku Python versions, I want to say that 3.12 is out. Yeah, 3.12 is out. Let's do that instead. Let's go up to 12. Oh, interesting. Got some migrations from that. Fun. Okay, and then let's bump up our runtime to Python 3.12. Nice performance upgrades. I know that's been the focus of Python for, or there's, they're always doing stuff, but there's a particular focus going on right now to improve performance. So this will probably be just a nice boost. Update to Python 3.12. I probably need to update my local virtual environment as well. Yeah, I'm running 3.11 here. So push that and then also do another deploy. And I think that'll wrap us up. So while that's running, let's talk briefly about what's next. I think we're really in position to do that time zone stuff. I think that does feel like the right next feature. I'm going to be able to test out the import feature and get all my stuff and then finally turn off that other service I was using. That'll be great. But this will be the nice way to add some preference stuff and start to flesh out the data model a little bit more and give it a profile, which we talked about. After that, I think, well, I don't really know where we'll go from there. Well, let's see. If we have the time zone stuff, we're going to need the user settings page to show that. So we'll need that one. Let's add that to the mix. And what else will we need? And there'll be some light things that we can pick up here and there. This was an interesting one that I thought of that would be good. One of the shower thought kind of things where, if somebody signs up today, they don't actually receive, so let's say they sign up, they do their verification. They don't actually receive a prompt until the next day, potentially. Depends on what time zone they're in. But right now I'm only sending it once a day. And so they would not receive the prompt for that day after they just signed up. So I thought something that would be beneficial to do is I want them to get a prompt like right away, so they understand, oh, this is what I'm getting. This is the product itself, is the actual prompt. And it would tell them, it has kind of a brief, well, what does it say? I think there's an empty state on it that says what happens if you have no entries yet. So yeah, so they would know immediately, like, reply to the prompt, update your journal, and if you have no entries, you have no entries yet. As soon as you do, a random previous entry will appear. So the hope would be, or my thinking on it is that you verified, great. That, like, we're ready to go. Let's rock and roll. And we give you the prompt, and you can immediately understand, I've got the mental connection. This is what that service does. It's going to send me an email that looks like this, and I've got a very clear instruction of what I need to do, which is reply. And then once I have an entry, I know what's going to happen. A random previous entry will appear in your prompt. So hopefully that'll be pretty clear. So I thought that was a pretty good thing to do. That would be a pretty simple-ish change to do. We need to extract some logic out of the job to make it accessible to send, anytime we want. And then we would hook into either, I think that there's probably a signal that we can listen to when a user clicks the verification link. That's what I'm assuming. If not, we can find some way to get that going. I'm sure we can make that work. So that's something that would be a pretty easy thing to do. Okay, so we're done here. Let's go take a quick peek at the real deal JourneyInbox. Site is live, and I'm not logged in. So all right, cool. Wow. So apparently all that stuff must have aged out very recently. There's only one person signed up. So maybe Hody just signed up. And we're down to, one person trialing. I've got to do, so I've been holding off on like any kind of marketing campaigns. And the only people who are hearing about this are people like yourself that are coming to the stream or watching the video later and learning about this. So you're welcome to trial JourneyInbox if you want. It will require you to verify your email. So please do that if you're actually interested. And then you'll get a couple weeks of being able to experience what this service is. There's not much in the way of user interface right now. That was intentional, but it will have enough there to give you that email experience of what the app is about. In the future, we'll start layering in UI to make it accessible from the web to like explore your own journal. That's coming, but the core functionality of journaling through your email client is what's available today. So please, if you want to check it out, please do. I would love to get feedback from people, and I'm always eager to hear from more. So I think that's going to wrap it for me for today. If you want to, or if you don't mind, like, comment, subscribe, share. I think those are the things that YouTube says to do. Smash the like button, as the kids say. And man, I'm so old. Thank you for joining in. Hopefully you learned something. I also have ways to other ways that you can learn more about Django. So if you go to my personal website at mattlehman.com, I have a book that you can read totally for free. It's available. If you also want to buy it and support me, you're welcome to do that too. I'd be really grateful. And it comes in either a paperback or digital. That's all up to you. And that's available. There's also Patreon or YouTube membership if that's your thing, if you want to support me financially. Frankly, at this point, I'm more like, rather you sign up for JourneyInbox and be a happy customer. That's kind of, I like an exchange of goods. I'm not, if you want to support me because you're learning, that's cool too. Not going to say no to people that want to support me that way. But the part of the building, this is building a product that people could be interested in, is having something to offer here. So that's like the end of the sales pitch. That's what's the stuff that I've got going on. Peter, I see your question here. Let me take a look. Phyllis, that classic philosophical one. And for the stream that might not see the chat later, is why Django and why not Flask? Good question. I'll put in just a few thoughts, and then we'll wrap here. And I gotta stop staring at my own face. At mattlehman.com. You can check that out. The reason I go for Django is, and philosophically, it matches up with other frameworks from other languages. So comparable frameworks that you might find in other languages. In the Ruby world, Ruby on Rails. In the PHP world, Laravel. In Elixir, Phoenix. So this is not an uncommon paradigm, and the paradigm is this: it's the batteries included mindset of Django. So Django takes an opinionated stance on bolting together a lot of pieces into a complete package, and that has the benefit of, there are things, especially if you're new, you could be totally, I don't know your situation, Peter, so if this doesn't apply to you, cool. But for many people it does, that are new to web development. They don't know what they don't know. There's a lot of things to know about the web. A lot of things that, I've been doing this for a long time, and I still don't know everything. It's hard to know everything. So there are whole categories of topics that you'd be like, oh, I didn't know I needed to care about this. And like security is a great example. There's like different types of security vulnerabilities that happen on the web that you could be unprepared for, and different, like one of these batteries included, or another term you might hear is like a full stack framework. These types of frameworks try and package in all of those learnings from the years from people who have been doing stuff on the web for a long time, and I like that about Django, that I think that there's downsides, which I'll talk to in a minute, but on the upside, I feel like it gives this opinionated point of view that tries to stitch everything together that's needed, and gives you a good toolbox to start. It's not a perfect toolbox. I think somebody last time said some of the batteries are dead. And I think that's true. There are bits of Django that's like, you shouldn't really use this part. Like, there are better tools. And that's part of learning ecosystem. But by and large, Django does come with a fairly full set of, this is everything that I would need in order to make a website on the internet. Okay, so I'll speak to downsides, and then I'll talk a little bit about Flask and how Flask is different. It's not bad, it's just different. So it's about personal preference. The downside that folks will say about Django is like, hey, it has more stuff. There's if you go to, well, actually, let's do it. We're over on the Django project, and if you Django has a reputation for being extensive with the documentation, and it can actually get to be pretty overwhelming. Like there's like a lot of stuff here. Eventually, if you follow what my thinking was, you would come to appreciate all of this stuff that's available, because when you don't need it, it's not like Django is gonna sneak it in there some way. It's very explicit. So if you don't need it, it just kind of stays over there. But when you do need it, it's like right there for you to import and start using. But it comes with that very concrete trade-off of it does and can seem overwhelming at first, and that's a very fair critique of Django. Django has quite a bit to learn from the start. I do think the documentation is pretty good, including some tutorials. Again, you can read my book. It's at so I've got Matt Lehman. Understand Django is where my book is, and it's all up for free. Like the whole table of contents is here, and it's got 20 chapters worth of content, starting from like high level and then digging down deeper. That's, I think, a difference in philosophy of comparing the way my book is structured versus the way Django wants to teach you. Django kind of starts from the database and starts from the bottom and the data that you care about, and starts working up and up and up until you finally get to some kind of web page that you show to a user. I started from the other direction, said like, no. When you're building a web page, you probably care about the website first, and you want to think about the pages and what the structure is going to be, and then you get deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's just a difference in teaching philosophy. Okay, so Django can be overwhelming, but there's lots of good ways to learn. So that's my thought there. Okay, the second half of that, comparing to Flask. Whereas Django takes this approach where I'm going to include everything, and it's all there for the most part. Flask says this opposite approach where I'm going to take this very narrow slice of here's the minimum stuff that you need in order to make something on the web. And then if you need to add more, you reach for Flask's extension ecosystem to start bringing in the pieces that you want. So it's building up from a small, very understandable kernel, and then expanding to what you need. So on the plus side, this is very easy to understand initially. Yet, Jeffrey, I tend to agree with you. That's going to be my criticism of Flask here in a minute. But so with Flask, you can read their tutorial page and you can see that it's like a single file, and so like, oh man, I get it. There's not, if you have some Python experience, there's not a lot to add in order to understand, oh, this is how this works. So the benefit of being small has its advantages, and if you have really simple apps or you're making very simple JSON APIs, Flask can be a fantastic tool. Okay, so that's the praise side of Flask. The downside of Flask is that if you're coming from different Flask projects, maybe you're working from company A and company B, they both use Flask. They're gonna, because it starts minimal and they only provide an opinionated middle core, the pieces that you bring in, the extensions, are all going to vary depending on where you go. And there are going to be some common elements that, like, this is the extension everybody reaches for OAuth or email. I don't know. There's probably all sorts of things. Excuse me. But it's going to start to look different for everybody, and that may be okay. Maybe you're fine with that. But I think it does make it harder for knowledge to be transferable from one Flask project to another. That's one point of view. The other thing is that, as Jeffrey commented here, when you build up these layers, like, you'll learn, especially as you grow in your knowledge of the web, about what you need. You need some kind of way to interact with databases. You need some kind of way to do templating. You need some kind of way to handle forms. You need some kind of way to have an administrative site. You need to think about security, what these internationalization, these topics that are here. And again, you can don't be too overwhelmed by them at first. It's okay. But this idea that you can eventually make Flask just as useful as Django. but you have to build up all of that yourself and wire everything together. And I think that's where Django wins, is that somebody else has done that wiring for you. Like a very smart team of people who have been thinking about the web for a long time have taken this like strong stance of this is the experience that we want you to have. And so it has certain advantages there. So I clearly have a bias towards Django. That's the product I use. It's where I've landed, and I see the value in that. But I've also used Flask for small projects, and I've seen Flask also used in bigger projects. So I get it. Like I know that Flask can be a really powerful tool. So I'm not here to just crap on Flask. It's a very popular tool for a reason. It's a big part of the ecosystem. Really likes it. Yeah, long live the monolith. I tend to agree, Jeffrey. So there's other tools out there. So it's not just a dichotomy of Django and Flask. So there's the other one that is out there. I'm drawing a blank on. It's not API Star. That was one that Tom. What's the other one called? It's got API in it. Python API framework. Gosh, this is embarrassing. Fast API. There it is. Sorry. I don't know why my brain went off and lost on that. Fast API. Yeah, thank you, Peter. Is another like major popular tool out there. I mean, 70,000 stars is nothing to sneeze at. So that's a great tool to reach for as well. It's a different kind of tool that I would reach for. It, as the name implies, it's more API oriented. That doesn't mean you can't do server like rendered pages and stuff. I think that's a feature in here, but it's less emphasized. So if you're making a single page application, you're using React or Angular or Vue.js, whatever the JavaScript world is using, that's your thing, and you need an API to back this stuff, I might be reaching for Fast API these days. I find that especially if you are big into using Python's type annotation system, Fast API can be an amazingly powerful tool to help you build good documentation and all sorts of good stuff. So that's another good one to check out. So I think my takeaway here is that the Python web ecosystem is still quite rich. There are gaps. Like I haven't been terribly pleased with the GraphQL support, for example. So if GraphQL is like super interesting to you, there's some decent stuff out there, but I think there are better tools in other ecosystems, personally. But for server rendered pages, for sure, for REST APIs, all those sort of things, I think Python is a hard language to beat in terms of productivity and getting something out there immediately that's useful. Hopefully that was a useful explanation for you. And I think with that, I'll call it an evening. And thank you all for joining in. And I'll see you. I won't be here next week. I've got to be out for a local meetup. But a couple weeks, we'll get back to it, and we'll get to the time zone stuff, and we'll start to get in on that settings stuff for this. So thanks for joining in, and take care. See ya.